David Rubenstein was was in Switzerland and gave an interview, and he talked about several things. And the way it works is that the commissioner has media people led by Pat Courtney, an amazing group of PR people, and they will get in front of the commissioner things that are happening. They'll get in front of Dan Hallam, who runs labor, who will be leading the negotiation for the commissioner and for the owners. And whenever you get, it used to be literally a clipping service, by the way, where every day you'd get a stack of clips that were printed out for Bud Selig, and all teams would do this. I used to get clips that were, an inch thick every day, just so you're aware of what's going on, and they'd be highlighted by our PR people if I needed to really see something. It's totally changed now with digital. But listen to what David Rubenstein said in an interview.
It would be the case that we would have a salary cap in baseball the way other sports do, and maybe eventually we will, but we don't have that now. So what we have is a luxury tax in effect. So if you go over and higher payroll, with a higher payroll, you have to pay a penalty in effect or something that goes to the other teams. It's not a perfect system. It's better than nothing. But at some point, I suspect we'll probably have something closer to what the NFL and the NBA have, but there's no guarantee of that.
Uh-oh. He said the magic words. At some point, we'll have something like what the NFL and NBA have. That's called the salary cap. That's called the salary floor. Do you know how quickly the commissioner's office heard that interview, got on the phone to David, and said, listen, here's how we're going to play this. We're going to need you to keep it a little quieter because, frankly, you're not doing yourself any favors because you came in trying to be the anti-Angelos, came in when the thought was you're going to be spending a ton of money on your team, and then you did the math and realized, wait a minute, we don't have the revenue to support the type of payroll, and you don't want to write checks because you're smart. Therefore, it would be in your best interest not to create a situation where we could have a problem with our negotiation. We need togetherness as owners. That's the only way to get out of the union what we want to and to get the concessions. They cannot perceive any weakness. Bud Selig went so far as to say in writing during collective bargaining negotiations that he forbade owners from talking to each other. We actually got a memo. You may not discuss the collective bargaining negotiation with another owner or with another president without the commissioner's office being present, like it was some sort of sunshine rule. And we got that document. And of course, we read it. And then we'd go to owners' meetings and we'd all get into small groups and talk. But the commissioner's office was always paying attention. They would staff owners' meetings with like 20 people, making sure there weren't little cliques forming, little voting blocks forming that could be a problem. I don't think Rob Manfred is going to do what Bud did and put it in writing that owners shouldn't talk. It's not a good look. But I do know that they're going to get involved when they see situations like this happening. In order for MLB to get what the NBA has or what the NFL has, you're not talking about a lockout that will not cost regular season games. The players will not allow it without a major stoppage where there is a breaking point where the players break. So, what's the reality? The reality is that when you are asked questions in the media, like, do you think the luxury tax is good enough or high enough? Do you think the Dodgers are bad for baseball? Do you think there's going to be a salary cap? Do you want a salary cap? You are told what to answer. And the answer that you can give is similar to what David gave. You're allowed to say that you think that Los Angeles has advantages like Japanese players, or that they get Ohtani, or they get a bunch of people in Japan to fly to LA and go to games, all of which is not really what the Dodgers' advantage is, but I digress. You're not allowed to give blanket statements about what you believe to be is in the best interest of the league, or what you predict is going to happen. Because then you're putting us in a position where if we don't get it, then we look weak. And we don't want to look that way. That's the commissioner talking about not wanting to look that way to owners, the negotiators not wanting to look that way to their fellow owners, and owners not wanting to look that way to themselves or the audience of fans. It is such ego in these negotiations that you start managing years in advance, which is where we are now. In order for baseball to actually get a salary cap, they will have to trade to the players something that will be unwilling and unable to get the votes for. There are a group of 8 teams right now who will not agree to a salary floor at the level the players want a salary floor. And from a player standpoint, they will not agree to a salary cap if there's no salary floor. And there's no way to finance the salary floor because the big markets and the big salary teams don't want to give money to the lower salary teams in order for them to raise their salary to hit this negotiated floor, because then you're just giving them more assets to beat you. They have a hard enough time wanting to give revenue sharing to these teams to have them get beaten by the teams that are revenue sharing recipients. It is going to be a fascinating process over these next 2 years. But in terms of sound from owners, the way David gave you that sort of honest sound, that sort of stuff is going to be way more calculated going forward. There will be spokespeople on the owner's side, but it's not going to be him.